Have you ever wondered how to capture the perfect landscape photograph? The art of landscape photography is a symphony of planning and technical know-how, a dance between the eye and the camera. It's not just about clicking a button. It's about understanding the scene, manipulating the camera, and elevating the ordinary to extraordinary. It's a journey that requires patience and precision, a keen eye for detail, and a deep understanding of the interplay between light, composition, and focus. Let's dive into the world of landscape photography and explore how to capture awe-inspiring images. The first step in landscape photography is location scouting. This is where the magic starts and the ideal landscape image begins to take form. Start by exploring your surroundings, hunting for visually compelling landscapes. These could be lush forests, serene lakes, majestic mountains, or even a vibrant cityscape. The key is to look for interesting elements that draw the eye and create a sense of depth and scale. But identifying a potential location is just half the battle. The other half is understanding how the light interacts with the landscape. Light is like a chameleon, changing its character with the time of day, the weather, and the seasons. So it's important to consider how the lighting conditions might transform your scene at different times of day. Early morning and late afternoon, for instance, often produce warm, soft light that can add an ethereal quality to your images. Once you've found the perfect location, it's time to focus on composition. A great photograph is all about composition. This is a truth universally acknowledged in the realm of photography. Composition is the way elements are arranged within the frame to create a visually pleasing or compelling image. One of the most popular composition techniques is the rule of thirds. Imagine your frame divided into 9 equal parts by 2 equally spaced horizontal and vertical lines. Placing your main subject or points of interest along these lines or at their intersections can create balance and evoke a more natural feel for the viewer. Leading lines are another tool in your composition toolkit. They can guide the viewer's eye through the frame, creating a sense of depth and perspective. This could be a path, a river, or even a row of trees. Adding foreground interest can also enhance depth and create a 3-dimensional feel. And remember, every great image has a focal point, a place where you want the viewer's eye to land. With the right composition in place, it's time to set up your camera. A well-set camera is your best ally in landscape photography. Let's dive into the nitty-gritty of camera settings. Starting with ISO, always aim for the lowest value. This preserves image quality and minimizes noise, giving you a clean, crisp photograph. Now, you might be tempted to go handheld, but let's not forget our trusty sidekick, the tripod. A tripod is essential, especially in low-light conditions or for those mesmerizing long exposure shots. It lends stability, ensuring your images are free from blurs caused by shaky hands or gusts of wind. Remember, stability is key in landscape photography, so whether you're perched on a hillside or standing by a serene lake, make sure your camera is as steady as a rock. Ensuring your camera settings are spot on before you press the shutter can save you a world of hassle in post-processing. Now that our camera is set, let's focus on the scene. Focusing is an art, and choosing the right f-stop can make all the difference. In landscape photography, it's critical that your entire scene from the foreground to the background is sharp and in focus. This can be achieved through manual focus or by focusing on the hyperfocal distance, a point that, when focused upon, maximizes the depth of field. Now, let's talk about f-stop. The f-stop is essentially the aperture setting of your lens. It controls how much light enters your camera and impacts the depth of field. A smaller aperture, represented by a higher f-stop number like f8 or f16, allows less light in but gives a deeper depth of field. This means both your foreground and background elements will be in focus, creating a sharp, detailed image. Remember, the art of focusing and the science of selecting the right f-stop go hand in hand in landscape photography. Next, let's talk about getting the perfect exposure. Exposure is the key to capturing the mood of a landscape. Your camera's light meter is a handy tool in this regard. It measures the intensity of light and helps you determine the appropriate exposure settings. You can also opt for manual exposure settings if you are aiming for a more specific effect. Here's a tip. Always consider the scene's dynamic range, which is the difference between the darkest and brightest areas. This will help you avoid overexposing the highlights or underexposing the shadows, thus maintaining the details of your landscape. Now let's talk about capturing test shots. These are preliminary images that you take to evaluate and adjust your settings. They're like your field sketches, helping you fine-tune your exposure, composition, and focus before the final capture. When reviewing these test shots, check for any blown-out highlights or blocked-up shadows. If you spot any, adjust your shutter speed or aperture accordingly. Remember, capturing a landscape is not just one click and done. It's an iterative process. You may have to take multiple test shots, tweaking your settings each time until you find the perfect balance. But don't worry, this process is not tedious, but rather a dance between you and the landscape. Each step leading you closer to that perfect shot. With the perfect capture, we're almost done. But there's one last step. Post-processing is like the cherry on top of a well-baked cake. It's an optional step, but can take your landscape photography to a whole new level. Think of it as your digital darkroom, where you can enhance colors, boost contrast, and fine-tune sharpness. It's where your artistic vision truly comes to life. But remember, the key is subtlety. You don't want to turn your picturesque sunset into a neon explosion. Instead, aim to enhance the natural beauty of the scene. Maybe it's by bringing out the vibrant hues of a spring meadow, or by adding a touch of contrast to a misty mountain range. And while post-processing tools are powerful, they can't compensate for a poorly composed shot. So, always strive to get it right in camera first. Above all, post-processing should maintain the authenticity of your image. It's about capturing the world as you see it, not creating a fantasy. With these steps, you're well equipped to capture stunning landscape photographs that effectively convey the beauty of the scene.